some of my clients, they were like this. They hated society, and they would say something like, "I just want to go to a cabin in the woods in Maine and just stay there." And then they would think for a second. They go, "And I would only tell my drug dealer where I was, or I have to get to a liquor store." Everything is consciousness. It's all going down the same thing, but it differentiates, right? That's why we got into this whole particle fever Higgs-Bigson thing, when they were wondering how. So in the theory of IIT, there is differentiation. If everything is the same, how does differentiation even occur? Why doesn't it just meld into a big energetic mush? And so that's the differentiation. And then finally from there, once you have the differentiation, how do these seemingly different parts work together like a symphony? And so it's like integration. That's the last part of it, is integration. So here's where it's, I feel, useful to people who are level 2 neurodivergent. Because one of the main things I think that kills us, I mean, like makes us really suffer, is trying to fit in, is the masking part of it. That we were not built for this, but yet we're trying to fit in, right? So according to the IIT theory, I think it's well, based on that lady, but according to but she said it matched. So the IIT theory, the way consciousness knows how to differentiate is it has to, whatever energy form it's creating has to know itself on the extreme polar opposites, whether it's planetary systems, language, biology, human beings, feelings, emotions. It has to know the polar opposites. And so when it comes to, say, you and me, human beings, take the subject of your mother or your father, the polar opposites of feelings, which is how you know how you feel about them, is love, hate. Actually, here's a really better one: politics, and how you feel about the president.
Yeah.
Right. So when reading all this stuff, knowing about the president, whoever it is, it doesn't really matter who it is. Democrat, Republican, doesn't really matter. You look at it, and then all of a sudden, what consciousness does within milliseconds is it understands the polar opposites of, do I love this guy? Do I hate this person? And then it knows where it is along that spectrum. Well, I'm a moderate. Oh, I'm really I'm really liberal, or I'm really conservative. And that's a feeling. It is sort of naturally, that particular body's energetic system naturally knows where it is in that. So, and that can be applied to everything. So when it comes to us, level 2 neurodivergent people take fitting into society, which
Mm.
means working socioeconomic system, trying to be financially independent, saving money, and the social part of it. What's appropriate in the workplace, what's appropriate in a family, what's appropriate when you're dating, what's appropriate with your brother. You know what I mean? All these appropriate, understood norms. We're trying to
Cultural,
cultural,
environmental.
yeah, then cultural. So all these things. So there are all these, and these are, we're conditioned to these things since childhood. So you really can't help but be at least exposed greatly to this system growing up, because your parents are trying to help you. They're trying to help you to get along. They're trying to help you to fit in. So of course they're going to. None of this stuff is bad, because sometimes people say, "Oh, it's the socioeconomic system that's bad." It's not bad. It's
Yeah.
like, if this whole, I said this before in a video, if the human population is all dealing with different levels of generational trauma, the human population is like one big mental health psych ward in a hospital, and
Yeah.
we're all dealing with different levels of crazy, even in the basic unit of a family. Some brothers have addiction issues, other brothers don't. Like, so even in something like that, you oh, I lost my thought. Family.
Y- Well, maybe I can build upon it
Go
because
ahead.
this raises one of, like, I think one of the big issues in this area of understanding consciousness is trying to figure out, where does it come from? And we, by default, through society, through culture, through environment, have this, they call it materialist or physicalist view. Our brain is what creates thoughts. It creates consciousness. So
That's the thought, is that yeah, if you don't have a biological system that's alive, you will not have consciousness. So a rock cannot have consciousness.
correct. So I
Oh,
think this is the dominant view, but there are a lot of people who are studying consciousness who have other views of how consciousness arises. It doesn't come from the brain creating thoughts. So there are people, serious researchers who believe that consciousness is just a universal property. It's a property of the universe, like gravity.
Yeah,
And
quantum physicists or atomic physicists might
yeah,
investigate that. But the problem is, again, that's not a problem. They still have to function in the world. So
correct.
even if they come to the conclusion with scientific proof, consciousness is everywhere. You are one with everybody. Like
It doesn't
that's
change your reality that you
it
have to
doesn't
function in
change.
society.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to change your reality if you then they're going to go before a court and say, Your Honor, we're all one. I really didn't do that crime to that person. We all did it together. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's sort of funny. But some people, they do
Well,
feel this, well, society's the problem. And society, we have to change the way society is. So again, going back, this is what I wanted to say. Going back to the whole everything's a mental health psych ward. If you really think of it that way, if you were running a mental health psych ward, there needs to be a structure. There needs to be rules. There needs to be something that, because otherwise it would be a free for all in there, and you'd be scared for your life. Like you would not want to put a relative into that thing, knowing that there's no structure in there. And so the human populations, the mental health psych wards, the structure is the socioeconomic system. It is the system. It doesn't going to cover everybody. It's not going to cover the extremes, but it's going to cover enough
yeah.
that people are, in a way, you could say, forced to live in it. Like, yes, I can't tell, like, I'd say 80% of human beings have this attitude. I'd like to do this, but you got to earn a living, you got to make money, you got to feed your family. They always say that. Like, I like to do this, but you got to da 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 da. That's not a bad thing. Then people sometimes conclude, well, society's the problem, the rules are the problem. No, it's not. It's not necessarily the problem. So when you say, um, we, you know, um, okay, let me just explain what's happening then. So consciousness in a human form, individually, the way it individuates is through the ego, through the person, right?
Mhm.
But underneath that, the ego and the person is the energetic signature, the energetic profile of you, of me. And so it's like two waves in the ocean. We're all water, but no wave is going to look like another. No thumbprint's going to look like another. And now they're realizing no brain is going to look like another. It is truly like waves in the ocean. So you could say if consciousness is the ocean, the individual human beings are the waves, which they're all the same, but no wave looks like the other. Consciousness is like exploring that particular form of itself in that person. And so that person, again, and the way it knows what it's trying to be is that where do you lie along the two poles of, like, just take working in the American social workplace. Where are you in there? Like some people, like Donna, my ex, work really, really well in it. All of her friends came from there. She's had nothing but positive feedback from all of her supervisors ever since she started working. They all loved her, and she thrives in it. I mean, she's a good worker. She does not take superfluous breaks. She's not reading Yahoo articles like I was. Then you have something like me that's more along this side. So she naturally works like this. I naturally didn't. So, and that is not a choice. That is like your particular energy signature. And you could say the closest thing that will help you to understand where are you along this, do you get along the American workplace or not, is your mental health. And your mental health is affected by generational trauma and how much you inherit from your parents. So the generational trauma is like consciousness moving energy from one wave to the other, to the other, to the other through several generations. Like it's exploring a certain kind of thought energy profile. And so every human being, in my opinion, has what I would call a true north. Like, where's your true north? How do you feel about society? How do you feel about people? How do you feel about how you like to live, how you like to work, what you like to do socially? Do you like to, all that? There's a true north inside, and yours is different than mine. And you can clearly see. That's why people say, yeah, I don't like to travel too much. I love traveling. I don't, I need my alone time. Oh, I love being out in people. Sometimes you're in the middle, right? So everybody has their true north. The suffering comes in when the ego, which is the part of the body that needs to monitor itself. And it's monitoring itself because it knows every human body pretty much survives in communion with each other. Even if you're a survivalist who creates a cabin in Maine and creates a bunker and stuff, you still have to go to Home Depot and grocery stores and shop and get this stuff. I remember some of my clients, they were like this. They hated society, and they would say something like, I just want to go to a cabin in the woods in Maine and just stay there. And then they would think for a second, they go, and I would only tell my drug dealer where I was. Or I have to get to a liquor store. It's like, great. Okay, so only your drug dealer will know where you are in this thing. But again, you have to survive in society. So that's where the ego comes in, is it's always monitoring itself. How am I getting along with others? How am I getting along in the workplace? How am I? And so the suffering comes in because the ego is doing its job of trying to help that unique energy profile to survive in this system that keeps this entire mental health psych ward, gives it some kind of order. And so the suffering comes in when your true north is really over here, but your ego is, but it's so far away from the way society is designed to get along with each other and the financial aspect of it, that your ego is trying to help you to, your true north is here, and your ego is trying to help you conform here so you could survive. Thus, the self-talk like, gosh, I just can't stand getting criticized, but I have to go to work and I can't. I wish I just was so much more relaxed. I wish I was a different kind of person so I can get along. I hear this from people a lot. I
Yeah.
just heard it yesterday from, honestly, a friend where they were saying, like, I have real problems when I talk to people at work and I say something and then they get mad at me and then I just get all flustered and I can't. And every single week, this person says this, every single week, like he's fighting himself. Like he just wants to talk the way he wants to talk. But he knows that he has to get along with people in the workplace. And to a certain degree, he loves his job. He loves his job. So he wants to get along with people in the workplace, but his body's true north is over here. Society with its functioning and how you get along with people is over here. And the ego is that thing with the self-talk in your head that says, you shouldn't have said that. Now look what happened. She's
Mm.
crying. Like she's crying. They're getting mad at you. They're talking to you about it now.
Mm.
And so that ego fights the true north, and that's where the suffering comes in, is you idiot. Like, because the person was not talking well to himself. I'm such an idiot. Oh God, this happens to me
I-
all the time.
In that situation, if that individual would have just acted the way that he felt was natural and didn't have that self-criticism and didn't second guess, didn't beat himself up over it, he would have been more in harmony with his kind of nature, but it doesn't mean that he would be functioning well in
He
kind
might
of
lose that particular job
right.
because he's autistic. He's bluntly autistic. Like he
Yeah.
like this like cold face, blunt autistic. Um, and so the self-talk usually honestly happens. Intense self-talk usually comes out of autistic individuals because they're not fitting into the norms of society. They don't do it naturally.
Yeah.
We want to talk bluntly. We want to talk right to the point. We don't call ourselves rude. We call ourselves like, I just don't want to talk about the chit chat stuff and I just want to get to the freaking point,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so they just sort of bluntly interrupt. But then the self-talk comes in. Shouldn't have said that, you idiot. And so I would say the first thing for that individual is honestly understand the system. Because what then happens is you start criticizing all parts of this whole thing. It's society's fault. No, it's my fault. No, it's the workplace's fault. No, it's the self-talk. No, none of it's bad. None of
But
it.
isn't it, I mean, wouldn't it be better if people had more tolerance for a wider spectrum of interaction? Like we conform to societal norms, and that's why it is perceived as being rude. The person didn't mean to be rude. They don't mean any harm, but they say things in a blunt way, and it's perceived as being rude.
That's why it is important to know yourself. He knows actually he's autistic. He does. He introduced himself like that to me. But is like, and he knows that, you know, the features of autism is that you talk this way, that you have social communication issues. I mean, it's very clear in the literature that this is one of the key features of it, but it's almost like he doesn't accept it.
I guess what I'm saying is, why should the autistic person conform to societal norms? Why can't they just be themselves? Why can't we be more
Because
tolerant?
because when you talk to a person that is autistic like that over and over and over and over again, say it's like your father. or say it's like your brother. You talk to a person like that over and over and over again. What's actually happening, in my opinion, is a person who's not smiling, a person who's talking bluntly, maybe rudely, interrupting you, stuff like that. It triggers your survival mechanism in the back because, your survival mechanism will relax around a friendly, welcoming face that is, tolerant of chit chat. That is like the purpose of chit chat. There's a purpose to chit chat. Autistic people don't think there is. The purpose is to help you feel welcomed, to help you feel relaxed,
Mm.
to help to start to develop that rapport. The amygdala starts to calm down, and now you feel relaxed around that person. Yeah, so we talked about the Red Sox. So what? I mean, at least we're both Red Sox fans. I don't know if I necessarily get along with him, but he helped me to feel relaxed because he talked about this. And so the reason why you're saying, like, why can't society? Because people like us, we trigger each other. We trigger that, you talk to a person like that who's a family member like that. A lot of times autistic, when there's autism in a family, I see a lot of times the family members do not get along. They don't get along. Brothers don't
Mm.
like sisters. They don't like each other. Mothers don't like, sons don't like their mothers. Because they're just experienced their amygdala getting triggered so often. Now it's actually denoted danger a little bit with that person, which is why
Mm.
sometimes, children cannot even stand the sound of the voice of their mother if they're like that. They just don't even want to talk to them. I don't even want to talk to her. And they don't. This is, maybe this is why some parents say, my kid barely talks to me. I don't understand what's going on. He just barely talks to me.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I mean, it would be nice. So I do feel, though, what does combat this and helps society to be more tolerant is knowledge, is knowing they're not doing this on purpose. He's autistic. Give him a break, that kind of thing. So yeah, I talk to this friend who's complaining, and sometimes he talks to me that way. But I don't, you know, I'm autistic, so I'm like, okay, I'll let him have this one because I talk to him in ways that are probably annoying to him. I would have no doubt. You
Yeah.
know, I ramble, so I'll let him be him, and he lets me be me. And yeah, we can live in a symbiosis that way. And at the end of every time we meet, we hug, we say thanks, And he's like this, though. He is like this.
Yeah. I think this is actually a fairly common in certainly engineering,
Yeah.
technical people, people really smart, and you don't have patience for someone who doesn't seem to get it, who just wants to small talk, doesn't understand what you're talking about, or whatever. And so you just want to get like, okay, let's just move on. Let's just get to the point. Let's just make a decision. Let's just, and it can seem a little bit blunt, can seem a little bit cold.
Yeah.
But it's mostly because it's like, people don't have the patience, for that chit chat, small talk,
Yeah.
like,
So if you can temper it with the knowledge of, yes, I'm impatient, but there's a purpose to chit chat, and I'm impatient because I'm autistic. So I think just that knowledge, you can temper it. It doesn't mean that you can constantly put yourself in these situations that trigger you, but at least you could survive a little better, I think, when you know what's going on. Okay, this is what's going on. So even just knowing this idea that I guess you could say it is theory, consciousness in every human being, in every single wave in the ocean, has its own unique energy signature. It's true north for that person, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or honestly, they like country music, don't like country music, do they like to read books, they like to watch movies, what kind of movies. Everybody sort of gravitates towards their true north inside. But then the suffering, in my opinion, comes in when that system is that unique energetic profile of that individuals in a societal structure and system. It could even be the family itself, that it just doesn't jive well in terms of the order that that family likes to establish. And
hmm,
so, you know, that's when the self-talk comes in and says, you shouldn't be doing this. I do this all the time. This is so stupid of me. Well, what if, so that person constantly talks about the difficulty with his family and getting along with his family all the time. Because you have maybe several autistic people in there.
hmm,
And even though they know that about each other, it's almost like they don't care. Like they don't give themselves a break about it. So he's constantly saying, don't get along with this person here. Don't get along with that person there. Don't get along. And the constant suffering. And he's sort of suffering because I'm looking at his face. I'm like, gosh, he's suffering. I don't have that anymore. told him, like, I don't have that kind of self-talk anymore because I don't live in a system like that. I live alone, but I don't live in a system like that anymore. So I don't even have that self-talk. When I did, though, I did. Like,
If you were interacting with as many people as he is, though,
yeah,
would you have to then deal with that? And would you
yeah,
have that? Yeah.
I would. I would hear that self-talk a lot more. You shouldn't have said that. What'd you say that for? No, you got to be doing this now. I know you want to be doing this, but you got to do it. Yeah. Because the ego is, you could say it's suffering, but it's the ego is trying to do you a favor. It's like your true north is over here, but it doesn't fit in society over there. So the ego is just trying to help you just adapt and conform
Yeah.
as like an interface.
Your ego knows, hey, this is not good for your standing in this group. People are annoyed
Yeah.
by you. You're being
Like in the American
outcast.
workplace, you got to, the American workplace, this energy system likes to take a lot of breaks, long breaks. It takes 4 to 5 times longer than an average energetic system to do chores and tasks. And therefore, after a small thing like a 15-minute thing, it needs to rest a lot. And that's not good for the American workplace. If your boss finds out what you're doing, why are you just sitting around looking at Yahoo articles all day? You're not getting your work done. And that system is designed that way. It can only do work in short bursts, which is what they say for ADHD autistic people. Most likely, you cannot work long hours. You have to work in spurts and take lots of breaks. So it was doing that automatically. But if nobody knows you're autistic, your boss may talk to you.
Mhm.
They want to talk to you about this again. You're not living up to da 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 da. You're not, producing. And
Right.
then that creates this self-talk. Why are you always looking at Yahoo articles when you should be working? My God, you're going to get fired from this job, you idiot. Like that's the self-talk,
Yeah.
egoic coming in, trying to help you to survive, that it has to work in this system.
And
And
that self-talk is rational.
it
Because
makes, it's trying to help you.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I've answered my own question because, I say, oh, why can't other people have more empathy and have more understanding for someone who's on the spectrum or someone who can't do the things that the neurotypical, expectation is. And this is just the work expectation. You have to do your job. You have to be productive.
Yeah.
You have to get your work done. And if you don't, that's a problem for the employer, for the company, or whatever, wherever you're working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
Or
yeah,
even at
that's,
home. I work with this one young lady who's dealing with mental health issues all over her, both kids, husband, her extended family, like autism here, autism there, trauma here, trauma there. She's from a particular culture that was particularly enslaved and abused a lot over the centuries and stuff. So the point is, she's dealing with so much, and she's highly intelligent autistic, and I can see that she's doing her best to maintain just enough of a structure of order dealing with her children who sometimes have to be, like restrained, or dealing with a husband who just doesn't help out around the house because he's too autistic. He's just too needs to relax a lot. He's dealing with a lot of trauma, but she tries to pull it all together. But sometimes things like laundry gets overlooked, dishes gets overlooked, savings get overlooked, the car maintenance gets overlooked. And whenever that happens and there's a problem, her egoic mind then comes in and berates the hell out of her, to the point where when she talks to me about what her mind says to her, she starts crying all the time.
yeah.
Like I'm just not doing this right, and I just want to relax and da-da-da. And the worst one is with their children. Worst one is like you're dealing with two children, possibly with behavior. No, one of them has clinical behavioral issues. The other one probably too. And you're doing your best with a partner that doesn't really help out. But yet, when you go to, she's doesn't like to go to social services too much because
Hmm.
she doesn't want to be criticized that, if you're a proper parent, you should be doing it this way.
Let's pause there because I think this is one of the root issues is that our society, we live in America, is, capitalist. It's maximizing productivity, output per worker, et cetera, et cetera. So whether or not we've consciously done this, we've all bought sort of into this system. And that is the problem is because workers are expected to be productive. Parents are supposed to, take care of their children in a certain way. You're not supposed to rely on, the government's, other kind of social welfare, mental health issues. It's a little bit like that is a drain on society. If you could just do your work, produce your output with the minimum amount of
So,
fuss, it would be better for society.
so I would say, so remember I said that every individual has their own unique true north, right? then I would say even society as a whole has a shifting true north and your ability to find yourself within that. So your ability to align with your true north, but still survive in the system to the point where generally your body's stable. I don't want to say you're happy all the time, but your body's stable and generally feeling like I can do this. I'm fulfilled. You know, that's always shifting, and that's what's called integration, is the ability to know your true north, know where you lie at in your ability to be in society properly, and still try to have a stable life, still try to have a stable system, happy system as much as you can. And that is shifting sometimes daily, sometimes every year. It has to shift. And I would say society has that too, because I think back when we were in our 20s in the 90s and all, society was a little bit more about being more liberal and raising kids a little bit more softer. That especially when it comes to parenting.
Hmm.
Back in the 50s and 60s, very regimented, my way, the highway, father's in charge, leave it to beaver, there's rules, and you're not following my rules. And that was thought of as proper. By the time it hit the 90s, parenting was more conforming to the way your children are. Let your children be unique individuals and show them the support and love and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Don't talk down to them. Don't treat them like they're a child.
Mhm.
Don't be so rigid. And now I think it's swinging back the other way as a whole because I keep on hearing from certain people like we coddle our children too much. We're just like we coddle them too much now, and now
Mhm.
they don't even know how to take some slight problem. Now they're just always whining about something. They can't take this, they can't take that. So now society is going. So even society as a whole, its integration system goes back and forth and back and forth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then society, because we live in a capitalist society, the kind of the goals or the emphasis on what companies need, how to make money, et cetera, is in tension with some of these other values or goals.
Say that again. I didn't quite.
So capitalists, it's kind of like you're trying to make as much money for the me least amount of input, like maximize your profit,
Yeah.
minimize your expenses.
As a company, yes.
And that may not be good for individuals. So there's a balance here. If you can get more work out of people, that's probably better for the company. But if people are suffering, you know, there's a point of, well, you're not going to get more work out of people. And so that's society in our capitalist society trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
And,
And
and the challenge is I think a lot of people don't fit into that,
well,
structure neatly.
the challenge is acceptance. Like, so people who say, like, I really don't want to do this job, but I have three kids, and oh my God, every day is just a rat race. Now, that's again the self-talk of that egoic system trying to negotiate where that individual's true north is and what they really want to do in life and how they want to live their life with trying to fit in their families. And that's what I was doing, you
Hmm.
know. And so just knowing that, though, about yourself, knowing about the whole system of what's happening here, give yourself a break. Because, yes, maybe you're not living up to your true north, but you have to survive in the system. And because of that, you know, you have your children were raised with a roof over their head. They have food on the table. They get to go to college, whatever you've given them as a
Yeah.
result of that. And as a result of that, I think if you ask them, generally they will say, I lived in a pretty good household. Yes, you were not living up to your true north and thus the suffering, but you were being a good father, or a parent, you were
Hmm.
being a good provider, and
Hmm.
that's hard in this society. So just to start from there, and so if you're saying so first of all, individuals who are then much more emotionally dysregulated because we're carrying so much generational trauma, level two neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, PTSD, bipolar, stuff like that. Our true north is so way off to the side that it just doesn't fit in. So a lot of times we're failure to launch. We're always having financial problems. We thought of as lazy. We get divorced a lot. We get unemployed, fired,
Yeah.
underemployed a lot because we just don't seem to fit in. We don't have a lot of friends, maybe even. And the ego then comes in there trying its best to get it to sort of conform enough, but there's so much inner tension between the two. That's when the addictions come in, poor health habits come in, which is
Hmm.
why, so many times people, when they know smoking is bad for you, certain things they know, like eating processed food is bad for you, the system just doesn't care. It's because it's under so much stress. It's gotten to the point now where possibly that individual's now using several addictions just to fit in, which is what I was doing. I'd come home every day, I'd nap for 2 hours and drink, and sometimes go do online shopping all at the same time. Three different addictions, or resting and two different addictions every single workday for 15 years. So when you look at the system, what I was doing, and then at work, I was trying to take a lot of breaks in a workflow that just really wasn't built for that. There's just so much work that you had to do. It didn't have room for the kind of person that I was.
Yeah.
And so when I would come home, this would happen. And it got to the point where the drinking got worse and worse. And so, when I help parents in dealing with, children of addicts, I'd say one of the main things that's killing your adult children the most is trying to fit in. They're trying to live an average life with a brain that's possibly eligible for disability. And disability basically means you're not able to function independently in the societal economic-based structure. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a screw up, lazy, that you're a leech off society. It means if anyone had your unique set of mental health conditions, they might be on disability because it's the way that brain was designed, And so that's where I see when I see addiction, like if somebody were to complain to me about life, not enjoying their job, da 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 da, I would then start looking for to see if there is addictions happening there. If they start saying that they're drinking a lot, if they're smoking, like what if there's an addiction happening there, that tells me now the system is it's too far, like trying to fit into the system is too far from its true north.
Yeah. What's interesting about all of this is it makes me feel like we individuals are existing in the society. Society has fed us these messages of what we should do, what it means to be successful. We are trained to want things. The reason for that is companies, only grow when we as customers buy their goods and services. So a company is going through self-preservation. And that self-preservation requires us to buy their goods and services. So once you understand the company is just as concerned about survival as we are as individuals. And if you understand that, you understand their motivations. They're gonna do what they need to do to generate revenue. Revenue equals growth, growth equals survival. So
Right.
they're going to feed you these messages to get you to buy the stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
And
And
to a
so,
certain degree, what they're taking advantage of, I guess you could say, is the base need for survival.
yeah,
So it'll look like, well, I have to do it this way. I got to survive, but it's hard because you do have to, the system still has to, the individual system still has to somehow get along in community with other people. Again, even if you're a survivalist living in the woods with a World War III bunker, you still have to like go out to Home Depot, you still have to shop, you still have to interact with people to a certain degree, and so you can never really escape it. Um, but so I feel the answer to this, honestly, and this is what I tell parents when they're dealing with their addicted children, because when you're dealing with an addict with behavioral health problems, every day is different. It's like there's no, what do you call it? There's no structure to it. There's no rules behind it. Besides that the person's addicted, they're going to keep on going for what they are addicted to. That's the only thing you really know is a constant. Everything else changes, right? And so they don't know how to interact with their loved ones day by day. I thought it was this day. This day I was a little bit more stern than that worked. The next week it didn't work. This day I was a little bit more giving and maybe even enabling. And the person gone down this day when I did that, they took advantage of me. And so what I tell them is you have to work from your intuition. That's the key. Because your intuition thinks and solves problems and interacts with people in a totally different way than just your egoic mind.
yeah,
It uses the egoic mind and the intelligence to do things, but it does it more smoothly, in my opinion, naturally, or even when it chooses to do things with a little bit more aggression and force to get something done, it's accepted. When you're totally operating from your intuition, you might be snappy just to get something done with somebody, but then when it's over, if you're working from your intuition, you don't berate yourself for it. You're like, oh, I had to do that because, the person was being a jerk. I had to, whatever. And so, and that's integration. Some people say, so how do I do this? How do I interact in this society? Or how do I interact with my addicted child? Come from your intuition. And when they say, what is your intuition? Your intuition is the peace.
Mm.
When you feel the peaceful presence of universal energy, and you're in touch with it, like the great majority of the time. It doesn't have to be all the time, but I think you do need to be in touch with it within the blink of an eye, just in case there's a problem. You don't have time to say, can you hold that? I gotta do meditate for like an hour. Come back, be in the peace, then I'll talk to you. No, you need to get to a point where it's there. And it is. It's always around. So when you're doing that and you're always in the peace, you're not attaching to anything. Your intuition doesn't attach to anything.
Mm.
Your intuition is not creating an egoic character that attaches to things and makes a story out of something, right? It just does. It does what it needs to do naturally, smoothly, and without holding on to anything. It minimizes the suffering because it minimizes the amount of negative, berating self-talk because it just sort of does without judgment. And so when parents say, how do I know I'm acting from my intuition? You know you're acting from your intuition when you're in the peace, when you're feeling it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It seems like, when you're talking about people who have emotional dysregulation, addiction issues, they have some emotion or feeling that's causing this internal turmoil. And the addiction is potentially a way of self-medicating or calming their system or stabilizing them. It's a way of temporarily making them feel better about their situation. It makes the story or the narrative better. But the root issue is whatever that thing is. There's an expectation that they're not, achieving. It could be this whole capitalism thing about this rat race of bigger house, nicer car, better vacation, keeping up with the Joneses, and they just can't do it. They're failing to meet their own
It's seen as a
expectation.
failure when their body was just not designed for it.
Yeah. And if they
Yeah.
understood that, why do you care about that? Like, why is that so important to you? Why do you need that? And if you didn't need that, then maybe you wouldn't, suffer as much and you wouldn't have the addiction or because you would be okay with the
Your
way
life
things
would
are.
be more aligned with your true north.
Yeah.
Therefore, your ego wouldn't have to come in so much with this berating self-talk to make you fit in. So life would be more created. I think, honestly, this kind of understanding of the world, the universe, and the way it works from the individual point of view, but also on how it translates to the rest of everything, it'll be better off if we're taught this as children. Because
Yeah.
by the time a person realizes this, sometimes they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and now you're married to somebody who's doesn't see that point of view.
Yeah.
They're just interested in survival. Now they're interested in like, what, no, our daughter needs to be in this special school because,
But
da 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 da. And so,
this is the problem I was referring to is because society, there are so many forces at work to teach us this is the way you should be. You should conform to this. You should do this certain ways. You should want to buy stuff and have a bigger house and a nicer vacation and all these things because that's what companies want. That's how they grow. So they are feeding this to you 24/7. Commercials, social media,
yeah.
you go out, everything. Like you are fighting against, all of these forces that are driving you to, live the way that they need you to live in order for them to survive and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, as much as the structure that's created here tries to keep a cap on the fact that we're living in a big mental health ward, it can't hold down the human biology of greed and addiction. Like once the human brain gets a little taste of success, it's just going to keep on trying to want that, even if it's not the best for the environment, it's not the best for society, because it's addicted to making money, which
Yeah,
is an addiction.
I would argue that is a trained and learned behavior. I think inherently people are not greedy. I think people want to help others. I think biologically being part of the tribe, helping others around you, I think that is an intrinsic motivator. It's because we've been bombarded by these messages that we then develop this selfish or,
Well, it becomes like a
greed.
feedback. It becomes a loop. It becomes a feedback loop that makes the problem grow. So your true north is over here. Your ego is trying to get you to fit in, and there's tension. The degree to which there's tension causes that system to need to relax, thus addiction. And so the more, the ego is trying to just do that system a favor. So it's trying to do its job, but it's creating it's trying to do its job, and the true north being over here is creating this tension, and thus it keeps feeding this need to get more. Which is why I do here, like a person who in a job they don't like, they end up buying a lot of cars or
Yeah,
something
but
like that.
why? But this is my whole point is why does that individual have the need to have the mansion and have the Lamborghini and have
Well,
that, really expensive
because
vacation?
now they've been conditioned by their parents. Like this is the society that we're in. We're in this upper level echelon of society. Your father goes to a club,
Yeah,
like you have a house on Monterey, and if you lose all of this because it's all willed to you, you lose all this, you'll be seen as a failure. You're raised that way. You might even marry a wife who
right.
then, or a partner who then agrees with this whole system. And now you have kids. Now you have a wife, which you love. You love your family, and now you're sort of stuck in this system. You know, yeah.
But here's the point. Wouldn't even those people want what's best for their children? And wouldn't they want their children to be happy? Isn't that ultimately what they want? It's not that they need material possessions. It's not that they need to have more money, more status, more power. It's because they just want to be happy and they want their family to be happy.
So what's interesting is, yeah, when I talk to parents and their addicted children with the mental health problems, I always hear this in the end because they just get exasperated, understandably. They say, I just want them to be happy. I just want them to be fulfilled. Mike, I mean, okay, he's not going to make a lot of money, but I just want him to be happy. So people on the far end where their energy signature, their true north is so far from the socioeconomic system, I would tell the parents, if you want them to be fulfilled and happy, then you have to really look at your definition of what fulfilled and happy is.
Mhm.
Because maybe he's not necessarily trying to be fulfilled and happy because he's just trying to survive the disconnect, thus the need to be on his phone. So, for instance, there was a young man who had strong, strong anxiety. I might have said this before in one of the things. When I was a drug counselor, I met this guy, and every time he'd come in for a counseling session, he always had his phone on him and was always looking at it. And so in society, that's rude, and you're not really supposed to do that. You're in a counseling session, you can't be on your phone. But he told me this phone and me playing video games is how the body relaxes. I don't do hard drugs. I don't remember if he was I don't think he was prescribed anything. The phone was his psych med. And so I had to be playing video games and I could talk to you. Don't worry about it. I can talk to you. And I was checking it out. I was a little bit skeptical, like, yeah. But over the course of the sessions, I saw he was looking down, but he was always answering the questions and keeping track of the conversation. He was never being distracted. He'd always know, yeah, did you go to the doctor? Yeah, I went to the doctor. How's things with your girlfriend? Things are okay. And your job? He would just follow, he was fine. And I could see he was right. It stabilized him. He was just so fulfilled and happy. He had a job, lived alone with his girlfriend in an apartment, needed this system. You could say he was addicted to a screen. You could say that. But, I don't think he would say I'm totally happy and fulfilled, but his system was designed in which his goal is not to be fulfilled and happy, is what I'm saying. His goal is to help that system just to survive day by day, considering how far his true north was and the way his brain was from being able to function in society.
Mm.
And so I just let him have it. I was just like, fine. And I didn't talk to him about why did you just try to go for a different job? He worked in a factory job. And I was like, why did you just try to go for, what do you really want to go for and stuff? I could see that he was just making it. And that in itself was a huge accomplishment, a huge accomplishment. So, you know,
So,
fulfillment, what is that to a person like that?
yeah, it might have been enough for him, but it might not have been enough for his parents or his loved ones. And
Correct. So they had to change their definition. So say they look at that young man and say, I just want him to be happy. He's always on his phone. He's working in this factory job. He's just barely eking it out with his girlfriend in this apartment and all. I just want him to be happy. He's not thinking about that. His system is thinking of surviving. And just the fact that he is a triumph.
yeah, his parents might think their definition of happy is a better job, a better apartment, a better, materialistic life
Yeah.
or whatever.
Because when they say that, sometimes I do tell parents, you got to really check yourself and be honest with yourself. Yes, you're saying these things that are like for them. I'm just trying to help them. I'm just want them to live a fulfilled life. Really check underneath that. Are you doing that for them, or are you doing it so you could feel better? What
Right.
is your definition of fulfillment and happiness?
Yeah.
Why are you really trying to help them? So just because, when they do well, now you can relax, right? And
Yeah.
so
I think parents feel pressure from their peers, from relatives. Oh, Johnny is working in this like low-paying job, doesn't seem to have much of a career or prospects, whatever. And that maybe causes shame within the parent, causes, guilt. What did they not do? What should have they have done? What could they do differently, et cetera? And, it's because of that internal expectation and pressure that they're putting now on their child or their loved one. That's what
then they're
causes,
putting it on themselves too.
and themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, because how many times do you hear things like, I don't want to do it that way, Mom. It's annoying. Well, that's the way I did it. That's the way I was taught. It's almost as if like, and you're not going to get a break. It was done this to me, and I'm not going to coddle you.
Yeah. I would say that they've bought into, right or wrong, the societal norm. This is what you should aspire to do. You should be building a career. You should aspire to live in the mansion, have a Lamborghini, take that expensive vacation, have all the material, things that you want so that you can provide for your children in the next, there's a rationalization for it. It's not evil or anything. This is just a perspective that society has ingrained in us.
Yeah. And again, as a life coach, as a human services person, eh, I'm remembering this line from Walden by Henry David Thoreau that said, most men live lives of quiet desperation. And I would say that's the majority of the population, at least in America. But the point is, I would ask them, how much is it really causing a problem? Because I understand what you're saying, but do you have addictions? Is it getting to the point where there's violence in the house, like snapping at people, like you're going to get a divorce? Something is really, some of the main areas in your life are causing problems, relationships, finances, health, possibly legal issues, because if not, well, no, I'm not having any problems with that. Like, okay, then let's just start with just giving yourself a break. Just give yourself a break. Understand this whole system with a true north, the way you're and what your ego is trying to do when talking to you this way, and just give yourself a break because you're doing really, really well.
I think within this societal norm, this concept, there is the issue of social comparison. So we look at the people around us and then we compare ourselves to them. We judge our status with, do we have what they have? And this is sort of the challenge is it's hard to keep up with the Joneses. The people around you may be making more money, may have
Mhm.
nicer stuff, may be, quote unquote, more successful than you are. But that's because you are comparing yourself to them. If
So what you're talking about there is there's an important part of this whole system that we're talking about, like the whole true north and integration stuff like that is the way you know your true north is you have to know the polar opposites of what you're going for, wealth versus poverty, and so you might start to sell off a lot of stuff, get rid of a lot of stuff to the point where now, oh, now I'm not happy. Like I needed my coffee machine because that really helped to stabilize me. And so you go way to one side and then you go, no, I need to pull back here. Or the wealth. How many cars is enough? I have a 5-car garage. This is too much. And you start to go this way. But that's how you find yourself. It is sort of like just if you're in your kitchen trying to balance out beans on a scale, what it usually happens, you put too much on one side, it goes like this, and you go, oh, take some out. Oh, too much, bang, right there. And that's different for everybody. So in a way, like this is how you know where you are along that spectrum. Your unique energy signature, you have to know the polar opposites to the point where they're uncomfortable.
Well, here's the problem is that other people are putting their thumb on the scale. They're saying, hey, you need more of this, you need more of that. And then you feel then you have to balance it out on the other side, like,
Well, that's where, again, so that's where you follow your intuition. Your intuition is the best compromise between your true north and what your ego is trying to do to help you out. Yeah, because if you're just, in my opinion, if you're just using your egoic system and someone is putting their thing on the scale, forcing you to think a certain kind of way, and you're just depending upon your ego, you're going to hear a lot of berating self-talk. I got to get a better car because these people have a better car. I got to get my child to a better school because then when I go out to talk to my friends, I guess my child's not in the best school now. Like it's just, and that's what most people come from that, which is why when I was in those kinds of cocktail parties, that's all you'd hear. I know I'm not making the right investments. I know I don't have the right health insurance. I know I don't have the right, whatever it is, you don't have the right whatever it is, because they're mostly coming from their ego, which is trying to help them to form this system, but it's been affected.
Yep.
And they're not coming enough from their intuition, which, that part that knows what the true north is. Once you understand the true north in the entire, the intuition understands everything all at once, because
Yeah.
the intuition is consciousness. So when
I,
I say that feeling of peace is your intuition, and your intuition is your connection with ultimate consciousness.
yeah, I think this is really important. You as an individual have your intuition. You know what's good for you. Don't let other people put their thumb on the scale. You decide for yourself, how do you balance that?
Yeah. And you'll know, because you'll start hearing that a lot of that berating self-talk. When somebody is forcing you to be a way that you don't, it's not your true north, you'll hear it. You'll start to berate yourself, or you'll start to criticize. You feel a lot of anxiety. That's saying that your system is needing like to move towards more towards your true north, and it's all based on feeling. It's all based on that, and because again, and how many times do you hear when a person's in their intuition, they say something like, "I don't know, I just made that choice. It just came out of nowhere, and it was the right choice." And like I just wasn't even thinking about it. It just sort of happened that way. Like
Mm.
that's when you know you're moving by your intuition.
And when you move, using your intuition, things are smoother, things are more natural. You're not forcing things.
Well, so I should say this because this is really important because when people hear this, especially the egoic mind hears this, it thinks, so your intuition is always that which is peaceful. Not always. No. So here's a really, really good example that I use all the time. This year, I took a trip to the Philippines with my daughter that my mom paid for. And my mom, said the whole summer before, we're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go. It got to the point where my daughter was really excited about it. Oh gosh, we're going to go. And I was getting all excited about it. Of course, my mother being my mother, lover, but she does this. Some small hiccup right before, like maybe a month before this whole trip was supposed to happen. We're already buying all this stuff for the trip. Forget it. It's off. No, not going to do it because she makes these snap rash decisions all the time. Normally, just to be more peaceful and to keep the peace, my body probably would have said something like, okay, it's your money. There's nothing we can do. It's okay. You can do what you want. It's your money, that kind of thing. But something inside, because there was less of an ego here because of all the shifts that have occurred, something inside said, no, not this time. No, we're not doing it this way. And so it's like, and intuitively, my intuition knew my mom's language was crazy. Like the way she gets all emotionally intense. That's her language. So it matched it. Why do you do that? You always do that, and you're always doing that. I started to escalate just as much as her, and it was almost as if I was observing it. So the way I would describe it inside was there was nothing inside taking what my mother was doing as personally. There was nothing inside taking personally what my body was doing because I was getting, no, the body was getting anxious. It was almost like it knew it needs to do it this way and it needs to match her energetic communication level because inside something new, no, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to let her get away with this one kind of thing. Something about this trip was really important. And so it escalated, went over her, and she went, okay, fine, calm down. Okay, we'll go, we'll go, we'll go. And then I just calmed down. And another sign I was working by intuition, no guilt. There was like nothing like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Now mom's upset. Mom, I'm really sorry. Da, 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 da. Let me take you out to dinner. None of that. It was just like, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. That was it. And there was no guilt inside. There was no like, oh my gosh, that was the worst conversation. I hate when I have conversations like that. I have to journal now. I have to talk to my therapist. I have to talk to everybody in my support group because I can't get this thing out of my mind now. That's when your ego is there. That's when you know. But none of that. There was no talk like that whatsoever. So the result of this trip was my daughter said, I am so glad we went to that trip. She had no idea that my mother was said that. I never told her about this conversation. She was like, I'm so
Mhm.
glad because I finally feel like I know the Filipino side of my family, Dad, because all I knew was like Lola and Uncle Si, and all I knew was you guys, and I didn't know it. And I feel so connected with this place now. I really love it here. We got to come back here. And then my mom was also thinking, she's 87 years old. Who's going to take care of my house and my property? What's going to happen to it? I don't trust my relatives. And I said, I like it here too. Maybe, is it okay if I took care of it after you leave? And maybe me and Sophie can use this as like a little vacation house. 'Cause she has a house there. The farmland, she took us to everything. The farmland, the house in the city. Sophie loved all of it. And so, like, is that okay? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was looking for somebody to help. I didn't know what was gonna happen with it when I die. Like, yeah, sure. Like, okay, so can I go with you next time to see you can teach me about it a little bit more? Yeah, sure. So there was like almost like a cosmic reason. Something inside knew this needs to happen.
Mm.
And so my body did this thing, and inside, because there's very little ego, it was moving by mostly by intuition. It was mostly like an observing and a justification of it. Like something inside is needing to match her crazy, and it's just doing it. And then when it was over, there was no bad self-talk. So that's why I say don't expect your body to be peaceful all the time.
Mhm.
When you're moving through intuition, you are like a, like you're like surfing, or when you're doing skiing, like downhill skiing or something, you're moving by intuition. Is it always a smooth ride? No. But when you're moving by your intuition, you're able to take the bumps better
Mhm.
because you're not expecting anything. You're able to just glide within a situation smoother, like surfing, skiing, playing sports, and you're moving by your intuition.
Yeah. Almost by definition, that is what intuition is. You know what is best. You know what feels
It's like
right.
it knows. It
It
knows what's
knows.
best. Because usually when you say it's usually a person's ego
Mm.
that is taking over the conversation. Like your intuition knows what's best. So so people ask, how do I stay in my intuition? Really easy. Just know how to access the peace and stay there as much as you can all the time. Don't beat yourself up if you can't. If you could stay there like 80% of the time, great. If you could stay there regularly 90% of the time, that's excellent. Because you will not be able to do it all the time. And so I can't, I don't. But the point is, when you're in there, you're in your intuition. And this is also important because here's a little secret about being in the peace in your intuition. It automatically processes trauma type feelings and trauma old core energies and makes them come out, and you clear yourself of any kind of emotions that can get lodged in there when you're in the peace. When
Yeah.
you're in intuition, you're in the peace. Well, I did that with one lady because she was going through a really difficult court battle with her husband, and I said, just be in the peace and stay there. And she said, over the last 3 or 4 months, when you told me to do that, sometimes emotions would just come out of nowhere. I'd start crying. I don't know where it came from. Yeah, it's like the peace is helping you to just empty yourself so you can be pure. It's like removing all the impurities straight out, and all these emotions were coming out. So just feel your feelings. Don't push them back down. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just feel them all. It's moving all this stuff through, either old traumas that were in there from your childhood or new ones that are coming from this situation that you're in. And so 3 or 4 months later, she says, I can't even believe the peace that I'm in. I can have his lawyer bullying me right in my face, and I'm just totally calm. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's living, and processing those emotions as opposed to the cognitive, intellectual thinking and, the rumination and the self, criticism and those things.
Yeah, because
So,
your ego, it's trying to help you, but it does it by forcing you to conform. Intuition just sort of does it by knowing your true north. It's more attached to that part. And here's the other important reason to do this. I told her, and I tell any kind of adult, because one day your son may come to you with a problem. He may be dating somebody, he may be trying to understand a new job or career that he's in, or negotiating a business thing. And he may come to you, I'm so confused, mom. I'm just so feeling so angry, or I just feel all these negative thoughts that I have. And you'll be able to help him. And he might say, what do you know about it? I know everything about it. There wasn't any stone that I left unturned inside myself that I haven't looked at. And so I can help you. If you let me help you, if you want me to, I can help you in this way. And so you may you'll be theirs. Imagine being raised by somebody like that. It's like being raised by a Buddha, basically.
mm,
And so, and not only will you be able to help your child, you'll be able to pass this whole way of living through your lineage that way. So I always help parents to see, adults to see, maybe you're learning this because the universe needs to teach you to teach your children how to do this. Because unless somebody teaches you, all you have is society teaching you. You know, this is not many people learn this. And so if you're there, but I do tell the parents, so what should I do? Should I teach them how to be in the peace? And that no, not right now. What I would suggest is you be in the peace, you clear yourself of all your trauma emotions, get to the point where energies and emotions don't get lodged in there. You can just constantly bring them through, and you're moving by your intuition. And then your very presence alone may change things for them. It may just change things. And so I tell them, like, don't start teaching them a technique. I'd actually want to see over the next year, you continue to do your work, how your relationship with them changes. They may become more peaceful just watching you. And that's the best way to advertise it if you want to, if you think of it that way. Like, wow, you're so much more peaceful. I'm not. How did you do that? That's the kind of student that you want, not somebody rolling their eyes going, what is this thing mom wants to teach me now? Gosh, some other thing she wants me to do. Just be, I actually say in the very beginning, your presence is the best teacher, not you teaching them a technique. So just continue to do your work and interact with them from that space. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, great. Any other
No, it's
questions?
good.
Is good?
Good conversation.
Okay, great. Thanks.